Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. It's loud somewhere. It's very rainy in Buffalo, unfortunately, which means I'm picking up wet towels in my basement, but that's my problem. Russ, start us off with the pre-show.
So, as you know or don't know, the U.S. Open's going on right now, and right now, Novak Djokovic has a chance to win the Grand Slam in the same calendar year. Hasn't been done since 1969, since Rod Laver did it. And I remember Rod Laver because my dad and I used to watch tennis, and Rod Laver played for 100 years. So I did see a fair amount of Rod Laver's career. It's amazing that it hasn't happened in all this time. It's a hard thing to do, though, because there's a lot of different surfaces. There's a lot of there's 14 days for like each tournament. Djokovic broke it down and pointed out why it's hard. And he was losing the other day 6-1 in his first set to like a rarely known, I would say not rarely known, an up and coming American, and still ended up putting him away. So this could be a big deal.
Well, I'm surprised because I know McEnroe had trouble at the French Open.
Yeah.
I know Borg. I think Borg had trouble at the U.S. Open. I know he lost
Australian. I don't think he. It may have been U.S. Maybe.
Well, U.S. and Australian are both hard court surfaces, so
right.
it would make sense that he did problems at both.
I think he had trouble at both. Actually.
Yeah, but and we know Nadal is the master of the clay court in the French Open, but then Federer is the master of Wimbledon. So it's tough, Kev, to find somebody in tennis, and I'm not the biggest of tennis fans, but I followed it more during the Connors, Borg, McEnroe era, to find somebody who's good on every surface.
Yeah, that's the trick. The courts, depending on what type it is, the speed of the game changes, and the faster courts favor one set of tennis players, and the slower courts favor another. So that's why it's been so difficult to do that. And what's kind of sad for me is I think he's one of the less liked of the champion tennis players that we've had. So it's not one that that people are excited about. If Federer had done this, it would be a much, much, much bigger deal because Federer is so well liked and so popular. But because it's Djokovic, it isn't. And with regard to him losing the first set against the American unheard of player, that's really his MO. He likes to fall behind 0-2 and then come storming back. So that's kind of what he does. I mean, he's been a remarkable player, and I think as time wears on, and you tend to like the players that you didn't like.
Nobody liked Lendl, but we all think fondly of him now.
Yeah, well, hockey people like Lendl.
Yeah, I mean, no, not a ton of people liked Boris Becker, but
but Boris had some European fans.
He did. I think he was fairly well liked. I just think.
Yeah.
I think Sampras was liked as an American, but he was sort of bland and vanilla because he was at the same time as Agassi, and Agassi had the long hair, and he dated Barbara Streisand, and then he married Steffi Graf. He was like sort of a rock star type of tennis player, but
what's interesting is our biggest tennis player, John McEnroe, was such a brat.
Yeah.
But he was just so well loved. And again, he has a hockey connection. He lives not far from where Chelios lives on the beach in California. They sort of ran together. And the Chelios tells a great story about McEnroe, begged him, asked him, pleaded, invited him to be a celebrity judge at a tennis tournament where he was playing, and then gave him grief when he didn't like Chelios's calls. Which
sounds
is
great.
So typical, yeah. So
Chalk flew up. It was
when I was in high school.
Chalk flew up. That's a great point. Tennis is the one sport where they have taken the electronics has taken all the guesswork out of the line. But I mean, it's remarkable now how we saw it in volleyball too in the Olympics. they have it, like down to the, millimeter, whether or not it hits the line or not. So.
See, it's weird because somebody in the chat mentioned Jimmy Connors. Jimmy Connors and McEnroe had very similar personalities. They hate each other. They don't like each other at all. But I always found McEnroe more understandable and entertaining because, he was a brat, but I think he either did it to psych himself up or he did it because he was genuinely attacking the official for something.
He was immature for a while. He
was right, but Connors was like that at 37. He was always a jerk.
True.
But he two things softened him. Chris Everett, him being involved with her, that softened his image a little bit. And as he got older, if you recall, when he was playing late in his career, everybody liked him. Like they started to root for him, which I think happens in all sports. As a player gets older, you start to think fondly of him. Yeah, even if you didn't.
My high school, college days were, people forget how big of a star Andre Agassi was. Like he wasn't a great tennis player, but he was
a great tennis player.
He was a great, but not like along the lines of the guys you're talking about. But
he was in that next tier. He was
in that next tier, but he was a huge star. Like just like as far as and you'll see sitcoms, like you might catch an episode of Friends or something like that, and he's like they're all about Andre Agassi. And I remember having Andre Agassi sneakers and stuff like that I loved.
But the thing with Agassi is that he was number 1 in the world, and then he was down like in below 100. He completely collapsed, and then he had a second act where he came back and he was fantastic.
Remember the controversy with his hair and all that at Wimbledon?
Yeah.
That was a good thing.
He had hair extension.
He has no controversy now with his
hair. It's all gone. But McEnroe never had that second act. He was great. He was about 25, and he made one run at, I think it was either Wimbledon or the U.S. Open, and either Agassi or Sampras played him in the semifinal and destroyed him, and that was it. He never had that thing in his 30s where he came back and he did something.
Just to answer the chat room, I don't remember Becker's serve. The two guys that I remember for serves that were killer were Ivan Lendl and Ili Nastase. Those were the guys.
Roscoe Tanner,
Tanner had a great one too. Yeah.
Goran Ivanisevic.
Two things. First of all, I think Agassi was a bigger celebrity than he was.
That's
But what I remember, 1979-ish, probably around there. I'm living in Arizona, working for the Casa Grande Dispatch, and I had a good friend and his wife who lived in Los Angeles, and I was playing a lot of tennis back then. I really enjoyed playing tennis, and I went to visit my friend in Southern California, and we went and played a couple of hours during tennis. And before we left, we watched the beginning of a McEnroe-Borg match, and we went and played 2 hours of tennis. Had loads of fun. Went back, and they were still going. Like that tennis match that went 4 or 5 hours, and we still ended up watching like another 2 hours of it. So
those were great. Those epic matches.
There is a fantastic documentary on HBO about Borg and McEnroe that shows a lot of that 5-set masterpiece where I think it went like 18-16 in tiebreakers this fourth set, but then
I was swearing in that one. I remember.
Yeah, I was a big McEnroe fan, so I was rooting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. All right.
One other thing about McEnroe, he is just a superior analyst. Like, in terms of and generally, like when you have a superstar, although saying that Chris Everett is good as well, but usually the superstars don't make great analysts because they expect they could make plays that other players can't. But he is really good. Like I really like
Patrick's good too. Yeah.
Which begs the question, Kevin. We're going to see the superstar hockey player this coming season with Gretzky and I think Messier also for Turner, whether they're going to be good or not. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on them, but Wayne Gretzky is a really nice guy, but and he's one of the best players of all time. But is he going to be somebody that will grab people's attention like Barkley or Shaquille O'Neal do on TNT? I don't know.
He's not going to be Steven.
I think Gretzky is too nice of a guy. Like I think I've never heard Gretzky say a controversial thing in his life, you know, like.
Well, let's back up there. Okay.
All
Let me just say, John Davidson is one of the best analysts ever in hockey.
Yeah.
And has any of you ever heard John Davidson criticize anyone?
I mean, I have in private, but not in public.
No, I mean the way
I'll recuse myself from that, Kevin. But sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, because
in public.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we're talking about
all right.
yes.
No, in public. I mean, because he's a great PR guy, right? And he's, you know,
well, but what he was really good at was being able to tell the story in such a way that nobody was offended. Like, you know, the best example I can give you is, you know, a player would make a mistake, a blunder, causing a goal, and what John would always say is, oh, he'd like to have that back. He's going to be the first one after the game to say he should have made a different play. That's how he would phrase it.
Right.
So he wasn't critical, but everybody knew, okay, that guy screwed up. And I think Wayne will be able to do that. He's very insightful. I mean, I interviewed him many times, several times, one-on-one, and he knows a lot about the game, and he can talk about it in ways that are entertaining. He will not, I don't think he'll be critical, because I agree with Mike. He's really a nice man, and I think he would have a hard time. But I think he will be forthright.
He does care about his legacy too. Like, you know, you don't want to do some things to screw it up.
Well, yeah, but he's not going to be a screamer, or, you know, he's not going to be, you know, we don't really have it. Like, who's that guy other than Milbury? Who did we have in hockey that?
Well, Don Cherry is
but Don Cherry was not.
Right. He wasn't a color guy. He was.
Yeah, he was a
carnival barker.
Yeah, he was a cartoon character almost.
Yeah. I mean, that's true.
The only thing Wayne has ever said critical was the Mickey Mouse comment.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Mike. I remember, but that was, you know, but since his career has ended, he's been very.
He's been an ambassador. He's been.
He apologized for the Mickey Mouse.
He apologized for it too, and Messier. You know, I mean, I haven't dealt with Messier. I've never interviewed Messier, but you know, and it'd be interesting to see how he comes off. I mean, you know, he obviously is this great, strong leader. But also a really nice, sweet guy from everything I've heard. So it's like it'd be interesting to see, and also, you know, the Canadian kindness type thing, you know, that they both kind of have. I think, you know, they'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It's a different kind of job, you know. And if someone like that, I mean, Don Cherry was what he was, right? But he also had a straight guy working with him. Right. You know what I mean? And that's a big thing. Like, if you're, you know, even for Gretzky or Messier, I think you need somebody else who is such an expert at running a show, because it's a totally different world than running a power play. You know, like running a 15-minute podcast or whatever. It's just different than, you know, I've been in music and we've done podcasting and stuff like that. And I know that there's just a difference between running different kinds of shows with different kinds of audiences and stuff like that. It's just a totally different world. So it's not something you can just step into and do, unless you have somebody who's there who's going to guide you through. I think that what's important is who's working with Messier and Gretzky. I think that's going to be really vital.
I agree with you on that. Although I would not call Ron McLean a straight man. He had an edge to him as well.
He did.
Ask Gary Bettman.
Yeah,
he did, but he also kept. You know, I think we can all safely say, if it weren't for him, Sherry would have been like quietly retiring a lot earlier. Yeah. I mean, McLean was good at keeping him out of trouble at the right times. McLean knew when to get him out of trouble, when to close the door on something that he's talking about, things like that.
And Ak, if you remember, I mean, Dave Hodge was the one who started Coach's Corner with the Cherry, and he did the same thing. And as somebody in the chat said, Brian Williams, who's a veteran reporter from CBC, used to do radio spots with Cherry. Everybody is the straight man compared to Cherry, because Cherry was so over the top.
Right, but that was his shtick, you know. But that was all it was in real life too, so it wasn't that much of a shtick. But I mean, and then we'll move on. But the two people I think that I've always felt like, from talking to people over the years, that just really would have been great in this role, but have never really done it. I mean, one of them's done it a little bit, but never given the chance to be kind of like the next Don Cherry type character. One is Ken Hitchcock. I think would be phenomenal, because he does speak with his mind. He does have strong opinions on things. He does know hockey, and he's been around forever. But he didn't play in the NHL, so that sometimes works against him or what have you. And the other would be John Van Beesbrook, who was also really good.
The thing about Hitchcock, I've actually talked to him about Hitchcock. They say Hitchcock couldn't do it because he can't be concise.
Okay,
so that's true. that he has a very difficult time. That's what happened to Herb Brooks. As Herb Brooks would always say, you ask me what time it is, I tell you how to build a watch, and that doesn't work on television.
I do think there's an outside chance that Torts will be good.
Oh, I think he's got a really good
chance.
Because he is concise.
Yes.
So,
if he's ready to, I think if he's just ready to just do that.
If he gets asked about something that we know ended a certain way and he tries to sort of change his tune on it, then it's not going to work. If he's honest like he is as a coach, he'll be good.
Well, it depends if he wants to get back into coaching, in my opinion, because like that plays into this too, right? Because
exactly what I was going to say.
Yes. Yeah, I think a lot of what we've seen over the years, even Pierre Maguire, to a degree, who did this forever, was always careful enough to not offend teams because he might want to get back into that world.
Because I'll say this, and I'm biased because I was witness to him for almost 4 years as a media member. Mike Babcock was really bad on the NBCSN broadcast because he held back. I think he wants to coach, and I think he didn't want to offend anybody. And the whole point of having Babcock is to say what he thinks or believes, and maybe that's not going to be politically correct.
No, and there's nobody better in a press conference, I always said, than at saying nothing.
Yes,
than Mike Babcock. Mike Babcock.
But I think as well. I don't know. I didn't pay much attention in Toronto, but in Detroit, he was good in press conference. He was good in Detroit. Okay. Yeah, because he was insightful. Like you don't have to be critical to be a television analyst as long as you're clever.
Right.
And he was clever. Like he always had ways of saying things, unique perspectives on things, and also he was very much. You didn't know what you were going to get. Like sometimes. You would want to laud if someone got 4 goals against his team, and you'd want to talk about that. He'd have no interest in that. And then other times when somebody, may have gotten 1 goal or 2 goals, he'd come out and actually talk about how great that player was. He was. You just didn't quite know. I always found what he had to say very interesting. He was actually better, much like Scotty Bowman. He was better in a loss than he was in a win.
Right.
He really didn't have much to say, but I didn't think he was all that good. The one thing I would say about Tortorella is, and I said this on radio, and people were surprised when I said this, John Tortorella is going to be 64 years old.
Right.
Yeah. He may not. He may see this as where he wants to go.
Yeah.
So I don't know that. Maybe he does want to come back, but this season he turns 64.
If he does that, he's fantastic. Like if he just settles into this as his thing, he'll be amazing. I mean, as you know, who was just incredible was Brian Burke. And honestly, I really feel, we lose that. Obviously, Burke just wants to be with a team, but man, is there anybody better at telling a hockey story than Brian Burke? I don't think there is. I mean, I just think that he takes you into it.
And he's a rare breed because he can be very verbose, as we all know, and yet he can also be very concise.
So. He was really good on Sportsnet for when he was there, and even after that, I know that he was doing little podcast with Jeff Merrick that were really entertaining about the story behind certain things. I think he's actually going to keep doing that, even though he's president of the Penguins, which is great.
He talks about things that just no one else talks about. Again, I don't know if other people think that people don't want to hear about it or boring. He'll talk about how much it costs to fly the team back across the country or whatever. He'll talk about just throw things out there. They're just that's really cool to know. It's just something that you don't think about.
He told the story of how Vancouver almost got Gretzky before the LA Kings because he was an assistant GM with the Canucks, and I think Pat Quinn was the GM when Edmonton was trying to trade Gretzky, and Arthur Griffiths, I think they would have had to pony up $15 million, and I guess McNall outbid them in that sense. So that was, he told that story.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes what's lost on all that, we throw around 15 million, but in 1988, 15 million was a lot of money.
It was a friggin' big deal when LA paid all that money for Gretzky. It was.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of money, and there were rumors. I don't remember exactly, but there were rumors of gold in cash and gold, and
that was. I remember that too.
Yeah, there were all kinds of things. I have no idea whether anything was true, but there was rumors that it wasn't one of those wire transfers. From one bank to another. It was
probably got a membership to that private club in Disney World that no one.
Was it in Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, no, it was not in Bitcoin, nor was it in the rare ancient antiquities coins that got in trouble, smuggling and all
It
that.
wasn't the T-206 Hannes Wagner either.
Nothing that disappeared off the Spanish fleet off of Florida. Anyway, here we go. Let's move. Let's go to the show. Even though we're kind of boring.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that what we have to say in the show is better than what we're talking about.
No, that's what I'm saying. Well, we'll try.
The longest pre-show.
We'll certainly try, but we did talk hockey so those of you who write down like they didn't start the show till 1:26. Just remember we did talk hockey like from
people write that down
all the time, every day.
Somebody in the comments says like 1:20. So you can fast forward to the show.
Every day, a commenter will comment on exactly when we started talking hockey.
Usually,
if we're having true confessions here, I'm not a big pre-show guy, but I thought
me neither.
was kind of interesting. So, all right,
yeah. I'm not either, but I do like doing them. I don't like. It's funny. I love doing them. I don't like.
Now you're extending it.
I know, and now I'm extending it again by talking about how I don't want to extend it. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, September 8th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and this podcast is the Mickey Mouse of podcasts.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I really like that comment. Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz.
And I'm Eklund, and God help us that we have the most success that Mickey Mouse has had. Let's just go for it. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time, or times about this time, or in the morning sometimes, to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I'm very happy to be back. Thank you guys for covering for me for a while. I've had some family issues and then a vacation, which was absolutely fantastic. I won't get into it because that would be extending the pre-show, but let's
do this first because
yes,
we didn't have Kevin on Monday or Tuesday, so this is the first opportunity that we get to ask him about Kotkaniemi and Dvorak, just to get his his viewpoint, and you too on that on how that ended up.
Well, what I would say is, anybody read my column, this is going to be a little bit of a repeat, but Don Waddell did come out and say that revenge was not the motivation for it, and I think that's true, but this is the way I would explain it. I think they really are sincere that they really like the player. I mean, I think it sounds truthful to me that when they were drafted Svechnikov, they watched Kotkaniemi, quite often. They thought they really liked his potential, still believe in his potential. It's clear that they did make an effort to trade for him. They couldn't agree on a price. They wanted too much, and they decided to do that. But the way Don Waddell explained it is that, once they decided they were going to offer sheet someone, and I'm just guessing on this, it was Tom Dundon, said, let's get the marketing people involved. Now, the reason that's important, is Don Waddell explained, is, look, we're not the Canadians. We don't sell out. We have to engage our fan base. Mm-hmm. The NHL has lauded Carolina's social media for really doing an excellent job. They're considered among the league leaders in terms of what they do to engage the fan base. Yep. They thought doing something with this and having a little fun with it would help. And I think they're being sincere about that. And he said it was really a marketing decision. He would not say, however, whose idea it was to mimic the press release. So we can just sort of guess on that.
That's pretty easy. Yeah.
But they said once it was thrown out there, everybody agreed on it, and they did all that. So, and whether or not who won it, and I do believe this too. I know a lot of people in Montreal think they won it because they got Dvorak. Everybody said that's just a trade for Dvorak, but it's not really because of the risk of the 2 first-round picks. They could end up, if they don't perform well, and I think that's entirely possible, their pick could be lower. I mean, and it could be a much better situation for Arizona. So, and they'll pay more for it. I like Dvorak a lot. He's a very consistent player. I ran him by a lot of general managers. Everybody likes him. Nobody thinks he's a great player. Everybody thinks he's a very straightforward, consistent player who's going to get his 18 to 20 goals. Maybe he'll have a 22 or 23 goal season, but everyone likes him. Everybody knows what he's getting. He can play that role, and they'll be happy with him. And you don't know what you're getting for Carolina. So I think it's possible that both teams get what they want. It's also possible that both teams could be disappointed based on what happens. So I don't think we're going to know for a while. And, if you're Montreal and you want to believe you won, great. And if you're Carolina and you're excited about how you got a 21-year-old number 3 pick and you gave up a first and a third, and the first is going to be probably late in the first round. I think great for that too. So I think it was a fun decision. I don't think it was motivated primarily by revenge, but I think once they started down that path, they really liked that they could get revenge.
Well, it's nice. It's nice when revenge slips into hey, by the way, we're going to get some revenge here.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I wrote in my column, I think revenge is best served as a side dish.
Right. Dish best served under a Zamboni. So yes. So my thought on it real quick, and I got a lot of heat from this on the internet from when I wrote this out, but because I first of all think that, and I asked Russ this because I was getting so much heat. I'm like, who has the bigger upside, Kotkaniemi or Dvorak? And Russ, your response was?
Kotkaniemi.
Yeah, Kotkaniemi, you think, has more upside. And I think that everybody sort of believes that. Now, Dvorak has maybe more of it. Dvorak is what he is. He's become what he is. And that you said that very well, Russ. And I think that what he is a second or third line center. And that's solid and that's good, depending on what situation you are in, that's for sure. When I wrote out there that they gave up Kotkaniemi a first and a second for him, in my mind, people got ripped on because I understand the rationale for that, but I should have said they gave up on Kotkaniemi a first and a second for him, because that's really what I meant, instead of saying a straight up trade. Like, basically you are saying that you think Dvorak is better than Kotkaniemi, that first round pick or that second round pick, and I think that.
Wait a minute, you lost me.
Okay, so here's the thing.
What did you say?
Here's my thinking on this. Okay,
tell me what you said first. So.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So when I say Montreal gave up Kotkaniemi a first and a second for Dvorak, as a trade, I understand that the first and second don't exist without them trading Kotkaniemi first, things like that. I understand that that's not
or not matching,
right? That or not matching, right? So that's not working. That's not how it works. But what I do mean in this is that there were three assets Montreal had here, all of which they were willing to say we're not going to be as good as Dvorak. I mean, they give up. They obviously think if they're not going to match Kotkaniemi, they think Dvorak's better than Kotkaniemi. If they're going to give a first and a second away for Dvorak, they think Dvorak is better than a first and a second. Which if I'm looking at a second or third line center, I don't see that as possibly being possible. Like I feel like the three players.
I think more accurately, it's the fact that they only had to swap a third for a second to get Dvorak.
And it's in a couple of years. It's not
right. And it's like, so,
yeah, but still, I mean, that first,
it's like
that first could very easily be better because next year's draft is very good, right?
By the time that second becomes something, you're talking about 5 years down the line. Like it definitely takes the sting out of the trade.
And you could also say this: the uncertainty, and I'm sure Carolina has a deal in the drawer for Kotkaniemi that on January 1 they probably signed the extension. Now everybody's been saying that. Maybe that's not true, but that's the rumor out there. Dvorak has got, starting this year, has got 4 more years at $4.5 million. Now you've got cost certainty there.
You've got cost certainty there, but at the end of the day, is your team better? Because you have Dvorak versus Kotkaniemi, or because you have Dvorak versus that first round draft pick, and even take the second round draft pick out of it if you want to.
From the point of view of Mark Bergevin and the Montreal Canadiens organization, I think they would say yes, because look at the way they've been yo-yoing Kotkaniemi the last 2 years.
Or did they make this trade out of just pure panic? Like they needed to replace him, and they had to give up the first. They had to give up this first round draft pick again.
I think it was close to panic. I think the issue is who's the next Kotkaniemi there, because they've already had. Right. I named a couple of kids yesterday that I felt like they rushed, and it definitely hurt their careers. And now Kotkaniemi is the latest, although I think he'll be rehabbed the same way Puljujarvi was rehabbed. So my question is, even if they had that first act, who's going to be the next guy that they do that to?
Well,
that's the issue.
Right. And
you could say possibly Ryan Poehling is that guy, because and injuries have been part of it. But you mentioned yesterday Victor Mete. I said Cale Fleury, go back to Alex Galchenyuk, Jonathan Drouin. They've mismanaged players because they wanted to put them and plug them into positions that they weren't necessarily the right fit for.
Yeah.
And that's sort of bullheadedness on the point of the Montreal Canadiens. I don't like the way they operate because they do that all the time.
Yeah,
Well,
I think you could certainly make a case that Montreal has come out okay on this deal.
Yes.
And because I mean, what they did really, I to be honest, I don't follow your logic. Maybe if you would have phrased it the way you said, maybe I would have. But but really, what they traded was Kotkaniemi and a second-round pick for Dvorak and a third-round pick.
Right.
That's really what they did, because that's the immediate impact on their team. And that's okay. I mean, you gave up the potential of Kotkaniemi for the consistency. I mean, that's a trade that happens all the time in the NHL.
But they also gave a first-round pick away.
No, but
they didn't. They
got
didn't.
a first round pick. They got
They got a first round pick, but that was theirs. I mean, the point of reality is you can sit there and say they got that pick and they didn't, and that's the rationalization that they're using. Yeah, we just got that pick, so we didn't really have it anyway. But you did have it because
that's the reality. We're just dealing with how their team has been changed. Their team is last year we had Kotkaniemi and we had all of our draft picks. Now we had to give up the second round pick. We had to give up Jesperi. And we get back to Dvorak and we get a third round pick back. That's all that happened. They never had, if they don't have to move Kotkaniemi, they don't get the first round pick.
Right.
So
but they do get, but they did have the first round pick, and they didn't. The reality is that they have to have a center now versus the first round pick next year. That's where that's the decision they made.
Yeah, but that pick likely is going to be deep into the first round.
Kev, the bigger problem for Montreal is this. At the end of a game now, there's no Philip Deneau to make a big face-off. They're going to have to use Suzuki. If he's not quite ready for that yet, which, again, he's a young player, they don't have that guy. Jake Evans is nice,
right?
But they don't have that guy. And they could have problems in game. Yeah,
but I mean, I still think it's okay. Like I really like it from the Carolina perspective, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
it's a good roll of the dice. And I was on the Zoom call, and Waddell basically said, "How do you get a 21-year-old number 3 pick?" I mean, he didn't phrase it like this, unless you do something like this. They don't trade them, do you?
Right.
We tried to do that. So
I want to know what was better, what Montreal wanted that was more than a first and a third for Kotkaniemi, the two. That's the other thing that's interesting to me. Like, because at the end of the day, they know when they make that.
Okay. I have no inside source here. I'm just looking at it objectively, looking at the Carolina roster and looking at what I would think Bergevin would want. I will bet you he wanted Martin Neckish because Neckish is around the same age.
Perfect.
He's a better offensive player. He's not as good of he's not as big as Kotkaniemi. I'll bet you they wanted somebody like that for Kotkaniemi. And if I'm Don Waddell, I tell him to go spit. And I
think probably they wanted him and first or a second round pick.
Right. Right.
I mean, I just say that because he was a number 3 pick, and usually players in the top 5 you value.
Yeah, for sure.
And you don't blame if that was the case. I mean, I don't have any idea either. But Bergeron, I mean, I think everybody did what they had to given the circumstances. Like, I think Bergevin did okay given the circumstances. To be honest with you, I thought he was going to have to pay more for.
I don't know why Phoenix didn't hold him up. I don't know why Arizona doesn't hold him up for more. Like, Arizona knows how much he needs this. I mean, this is like, I don't know why they didn't get 2 first-round picks out of this.
I'll tell you why. Because Arizona gets off the hook for 4 years of salary at $4.5 million.
You got to pay somebody, Mike, at some point.
I agree, but look, it's been bargained all of the last.
I know, but at the end, but still, they had Montreal in one of the weakest positions I've ever seen a team have another team.
I agree. I mean, there's rumors out there right now that I think are completely unfounded that Arizona is trying to trade Jacob Chikrin, and I'm like, if they do that, Gary Bettman should take that team away from that ownership group.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I want to know what the circumstances were because the way I see it, Kotkaniemi had the same amount of goals as Tyler Toffoli in the playoffs. He didn't have the same amount of assists, but he had the same amount of goals. They barely had anybody scoring goals, and they basically traded away the guy who had the third best goal total in the playoffs.
And Russ, the first chance they got to sit him in the final, they do.
They did
and that
again.
was just basically, hey, I'm going to play a veteran because I want to play a veteran, and he probably won't make a mistake in this game. And that's what they did. But that to me is like, I don't understand what the circumstances were because he was scoring goals in the playoffs.
Yeah, they played not to lose at the end of the day, Russ, is what they did.
Well,
and that's ridiculous when you're that big of an underdog to play not to lose.
Well, in Kotkaniemi, in terms of his potential, yes, he has been slow to develop, but there is, people. He was asked directly on the Zoom call whether he thought that he was developed properly, and he said no. And if you look at his numbers, he actually went downhill. He started out strong. His second year was okay. His third year was not nearly as good. And if you look at that draft class, with the exception of obviously Brady Tkachuk and Svechnikov and Quinn Hughes, and there's 3 or 4 of them, but we're still waiting for most of that class.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that class has been slow.
Yeah.
But
it just isn't that abnormal, like you said, Mike Russ. It's kind of normal.
He suffers the same fate as somebody used the Jesse Puljujarvi comparison because they're both Finns and they both played in the NHL, right? But I think this is Luke Schenn all over again. 18-year-old kid forced into a position in the NHL, has a good rookie year, and everybody thought Kotkaniemi, good rookie year, and then he took a step back, and Montreal sent him to the AHL. And I just think that they mismanaged him, and hopefully it's early enough in his career that some proper treatment by Carolina will bring
he had a good rookie year because they showed confidence in him. At the end of the day, that's the year that they were trying to justify their pick, and they showed confidence in him. Basically everything Montreal's done in this situation, in my opinion, is to benefit themselves. They continually make plays here to make them not look bad. That's what they're trying. There's a real perception, and I'm, as a longtime Montreal fan, this has always been there, but it's never been as obvious as it is right now. And I'm the first to say that this is a team that cares too much about what other people think. They care. It's just in general, they really do. And I find this really, really bad. I think this is one of the biggest mistakes they've ever made. And I'm not, and I'm just not there with you guys on Dvorak, because I think, and you guys are the ones who are always arguing about how important first round picks are. Just like I find this, that they, at least if you trade Kotkaniemi, you can say you got a first round draft pick who could turn into maybe another Kotkaniemi, but instead you got Dvorak, who's not going to turn into another Kotkaniemi. So it's to me,
but we don't even know what Kotkaniemi is.
It is.
Right.
Exactly.
We don't. But at the same time, I don't know.
Yeah, but
I think we have an idea of what he could be. We don't know.
Yeah.
What he is.
But Montreal, they're not the Red Wings or the Ottawa Senators or the Buffalo Sabres or the Anaheim Ducks, teams that are rebuilding. They went to the Stanley Cup final last year.
They did.
And they have a fan base that expects that, them to compete hard, and they still believe they can compete hard.
Right.
Yeah.
They still think they're in it. And if that's the case, it's less about a first round pick and more about plugging the hole that's created.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. But that's, if you think last year was the natural course of events versus just like a one-off that they got lucky.
Yeah, they're not looking at it.
Well, they got lucky, but that doesn't change.
I mean, and Romanov, who's another guy who was kind of mistreated last year, and another great player that they have. This also sets a precedent for that. Like, this also sets a precedent for players that Montreal's going to treat like this, that those players might want to get out of there.
Right. This is a symptom of this organization, of what they've done with young players. They were clawing and scratching to get Romanov or Romanov, however you want to pronounce his name, from the KHL. Yep. And then he plays, I think, almost every game during the regular season. And then when the playoffs come along, let's play John Merrill, Brett Kulak. I mean, give me a break.
Or Gustafson, or what they do.
Gustafson, too. Yeah.
I mean, and they bring Romanov in, and he scores a huge goal for them in the first game he comes back, right?
And then they put back on the bench.
Yeah, back on the bench. I mean, it's hard. Like I jokingly to you guys, like the whole thing, and I wrote this in my blog too, that you can't argue with success, right? So Montreal won to the Stanley Cup, like you're saying, Kevin. But you sometimes can argue with success. I mean, sometimes it's just there's other things.
You have to look at it and say they're not going to have Shea Weber this year. They probably are.
They may stay
the same offensively, maybe a slight bit better.
Yeah.
Defensively, it's close, and Carey Price is another year older. The chances of getting back to the Cup are not great.
Yeah.
They're not.
No,
And
no,
then,
they're not, but you have to act like you're there.
They
you're
weren't
right.
there. They weren't great last year, so they got there.
And in that division, I say they're going to be very challenged to even make a wild card because it's going to be Toronto,
Really
Boston,
hard division.
Tampa, and Florida.
All right, we have to move on. We do have to move on. Sorry, guys. I'm going to move us on to Team Canada, which we're going to talk about today. And it's not, this was fun. But it's always fun putting these Olympic teams together. We're going to talk about Team USA on Friday. This I'm going to argue is the best 12 forwards Canada's ever put on the ice for one team. And I know that
kind of tournament.
Yeah, in any kind of tournament.
Oh, 87 Canada.
87 Canada.
Yeah, not even close.
No, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to say that they're as good as the top end as those. I mean, come on, I get that. But just from top to bottom, if you're going to the fourth line of that team versus the fourth line of this team, let's compare that.
You had Dale Howardchuk playing on the wing because they were so loaded at
again, top 6, I'll give them every day of the week to 87 team, but top 12, this is interesting to me. All right, but let's just go through it. All right,
let's call up the 87 team.
All right, let's bring up the 87 team. I'll do that while we start with the top line on this team and who everybody thinks that could be. And Mike, you're gonna bring up the 87 team for us.
I got them right now.
All right, give me the bottom.
Let me count them up.
Give me the bottom 6.
Bottom 6. All right, let's see here. And I don't remember the lines, but I'm just interpreting here by the roster. Kevin Dineen.
All right.
Let's see. Magoulet was definitely a top 6. Claude Lemieux.
Right.
Brian Propp.
Right.
Brent Sutter.
Right.
Rick Tocchet.
Okay. So that's 5 you got right there.
Let's see here. Glenn Anderson. Did I say Glenn Anderson?
No, I'd say that's 6. I'll give you 6 there. Who's the top? So that's the bottom 6. We'll say
that's the bottom 6. Yeah, that's
all right.
Okay, the top 6. You have Gartner, Gilmore, Goulet, Gretzky, Howardchuk, Mario Lemieux, Messier.
Right. No one's touching that.
Close.
Okay, no one's touching that, and I'm not going to say for a second that they are. Okay, I'm not going to say
who's going to equal Glenn Anderson. Just tell me who's going to beat out Glenn Anderson in the bottom 6.
Mitch Marner.
Mitch Marner is not a bottom 6 player.
I think on my team he is. We'll get there.
Mitch Marner was 5th in the NHL in scoring.
I know.
He's going to be on the top line with McDavid.
I don't think so.
They're not breaking that up. Yeah.
Breaking what up?
If Austin Matthews is your fourth line center, now I see how you're looking.
No. Let's go through our line. Let's go through our teams. All right, I'm pissed off everybody already. I see I'm just back for 1 hour here. All right, let's go through our top line. I see me. So everybody, a lot of people are saying McDavid, McKinnon, Marner. Right? That seems to be the top line.
Yes.
You don't think they're going to break that lineup, Kevin? They've been together before.
I don't. I just think they've got all the elements on that line. With the skate, putting McKinnon and McDavid just is going to be so much fun, and I think they think it's going to be so dangerous.
Sure. No, those two I'm with you 100%. I put those two together. I don't know if I put Marner there. That's my opinion.
No, and the reason you put Marner there is because your options on right wing, Mark Stone is slower than those guys, so that's not a good fit.
Right.
You could put Stamkos there because he's
I'm not. Stamkos isn't on my team.
Well, on some people's people that he is. Marner can play is a fantastic playmaker, and you want to set up those guys. So
I have the guy who has to play there.
Okay.
All right. It's Braden Point. That's where I put
playing center.
No, not on this team. No, not on this team. He's not because you're full of so many centers to me. This is not. He's not playing center.
Let's hear the rest. Let's hear the rest.
Because I don't know how you.
So we can tear it down.
David McKinnon, Braden Point. Braden Point's the only player that's smart enough, fast enough, and can do everything to And where I think Marner is smart enough and fast enough, but not strong enough defensively in certain situations. Not that you're looking for that in that line. I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying you have 3 players that are all want the puck all the time. That's a little bit risky. All right, that's my first line. My second line is Crosby, Marchand, and Bergeron. I put them back. I keep them together They've been ridiculous together. They're all still great players. They're all still solid, right? So that's your top 6 there. So you guys have the only difference between my top 6 and your top 6 are Marner and Point. Right.
Marner.
So
Marner.
if I drop Point out, I put Marner in the bottom 6. You drop Marner out, you put Point in the bottom 6. So no matter how you slice it, both those are 2 really good players in the bottom 6 that are better than people on the 87 team right there.
I don't know if Braden Point's better than Glenn Anderson. I think there's a lot of road to go down before that.
Braden Point is a center. You don't want to put him on the wing. I'm sorry. He's so good up the middle. I mean, he's
a good center. Yeah,
he's a good center. But you've got Crosby. So my third line is Tavares, Marner, and Stone. That's where I put them together. I think that I think keeping Tavares.
Okay, Tavares is the center then, right?
Tavares is the center, right?
Yeah,
and he is a great center.
Marner can't play the left side. You got 2 right.
Put Marner on the right. Okay, if Stone can't play the left, we can debate that. But I think that I like that combination of players. You could change that you could put Huberdeau in there if you wanted to instead.
They might want to put Tavares and Marner together because they play together.
Yeah, right. And I think that helps. And Canada's learned in the past that that's something that works.
Wait, I'm going to make Mark Stone a 4th liner now because I'm going to slip in Huberdeau. I don't think so.
Huberdeau is very, very good.
Player, but listen, Mark Stone's a better player all around. He is.
Now the apparently the consensus for the third line is Huberdeau, Point, and Stone.
Yeah, that's what I have too.
Huberdeau, Point, and Stone. All right, you guys aren't that far off of me. And like Rush, they're putting Huberdeau up there.
I know.
Okay,
not instead of Stone. I wouldn't do it instead of Stone.
No, but they're putting them.
They put them together, so okay.
So my 4th line is Couturier, Huberdeau, and O'Reilly, and that's to me. And what
with that. Yeah.
What was that?
Nothing wrong with that.
And what that 4th line gives you, besides the defense of Couturier, and you have Couturier, Point, and Bergeron as penalty killers. You've just got crazy penalty killers there, right? But besides that, you've got Huberdeau can step up and play in the top 6 in any of those spots if someone's not scoring. O'Reilly is just a disturber that's going to be, and also a strong playmaker, also who's played very well with McDavid in the past. O'Reilly has in tournaments, and I think that that's something that you can always bring him up to the top line if you need to.
Now the other forwards that are in the mix: Scheifele, Barzal, to a lesser extent, Bo Horvat, Taylor Hall, Tyler Seguin, Logan Couture.
Yep. And Stamkos. I don't have Stamkos on my team.
Stamkos. Giroux, I'd probably an outside chance.
Honestly, if it were up to me, I would have Barzal in there instead of Huberdeau. I would.
Instead of Huberdeau.
Oh, Huberdeau's pretty good, Russ. I mean,
so is Barzal, like that speed.
But
Barzal's still developing where Huberdeau is so consistent.
Yeah.
Scheifele is a bull in a china shop. I think. The thing with Stamkos is the injuries. If he's healthy going into the going like into December, then I think he could be a selection, and he can play He can play center. He can play wing.
Yeah, he's just a different.
I think
he's a different kind of player in his career right now. Stamkos is than what he was.
If the coach lets this be an offensive game, then Barzal I think is a better fit than Huberdeau. If Barzal has to play like Barry Trotz, then yes, of course his offense is taken away. But I mean, in an Olympics like this, I kind of want the faster guy, and he's faster than Huberdeau.
Well, for sure. But Huberdeau is such a consistent scoring player, Florida, and he's going to be playing at a high level of confidence because Florida's going to be very good this season. So I mean, I don't, I like
it's a tough call either way.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing with Stamkos. Like, if people want to say he's on the bubble, I'm actually okay with that because he's been up but I think you got to consider, the experience he brings and all that. I wonder if Canada will look at it the way the U.S. always used to look at it. Like, you pick a guy that you're going to need when you play Canada. I wonder if Canada look like the guy they need when they're going to play the U.S.
Well,
who's the Scheifele and O'Reilly kind of fill the same mold for me. Depending on what you want to do.
Who's the Chris Drury of TV?
Right, because Burke made sure Chris Drury was
on. How much time we got left? Because I did want to talk about something else. Because we're going to talk about U.S. on Friday, I started to do my research, and I talked to someone about this week. The Americans had their meeting.
Yep. Okay.
The potential pool players, and Jack Eichel was on the call.
Yeah.
So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that was a key component. And the prevailing attitude about Eichel is we're going to just wait and see.
Yeah.
And that's the logical move. So, they're going to just wait and see where he's at. Is he going to be able to play? Will he have the surgery? And when he gets back, will he have any rust? But the fact that he still wants to be involved, I think, is a good sign, which tells me he probably thinks there's a chance he's going to get a surgery. So
I would think, Kevin, he would have to be back by the middle of December in the NHL playing and a month at least for them to consider. I can't see him coming back in like the first game is the opening round of the Olympics.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, that's for sure.
I did want to answer in the chat room. I never said Mark Stone was as fast as Barzal. Barzal is superior speed to Huberdeau and to Stone, but Stone is the best defensive forward on there. That's why Stone makes it every time.
If Barzal's playing at the top of his game, Russ, I'm putting him in there. I'm with you.
Yeah. Mark in the chat brings up a name that's intriguing. What about Nick Suzuki?
Suzuki is
I think he could make the team, but on this team they might just pass him by and say,
I think that you can make a good case for him. I really do, but I think you look at historically Canada, they've gone back to the guys that they know, have been through it. And, so it's hard for them to break the mold. They bring in a few guys, but usually they the first 9 are guys that we've seen before, and
that's why some people think, well, Tavares doesn't belong. Well, Tavares was on the team in Sochi, and he's still one of the league's best players, so he's going to make it unless he gets injured or unless he's having.
He did get injured.
Well, I mean, so could other players too.
Let's talk Lemieux, Gretzky, and Messier versus McDavid, McKinnon, and Crosby. For a second,
it's not even a game.
No.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let's skip the goaltending because we talked about the goaltending.
I don't know. It's not a game. Go ahead.
I think
it's not. I mean, it's almost disrespectful to.
Yeah.
Lemieux and Gretzky had such an incredible.
Yeah.
Career. Like I don't mean that to demean. Like I think the world of Crosby, and Connor McDavid's the most exciting player ever. But you have to give the nod to the guys that have already done it. And
listen. I agree with you, but I think that you're not talking like slop here. We're talking like
nobody was saying that.
3 generational players, all of whom have changed hockey recently, and their whole stories haven't been written yet. So it's hard to sit there and
the best that have ever played the game. That's the issue.
I'm not saying again. They're not the best that's ever played the game, of course, but I'm not saying again that I'm just saying top 12. It's
it's no different than when I was talking to Mark Lazarus and he wanted to say that Patrick Kane is the best American-born player. Like he might be, but I think we need to wait till.
We do need to still wait. Yes.
To wait until because it's disrespectful to the guys that are up there who have completed their careers. Who we don't know whether all of his.
Let's talk blue line.
Yeah, let's look just quickly on the goaltending because because I think there's four goalies for 3 spots or maybe 5, but Price, Fleury, Binnington, Blackwood, and maybe Carter Hart if Carter Hart bounces back.
What about Darcy Kempner? He's from Saskatoon.
And Kemper I put in there too.
Darcy Kempner in there.
I think that's all. If you put Kemper in there as well. I mean, I think this is Price. Price has got the starter, right? No one's going to disagree with that at this point. To me, it's the backup. Some people are saying Fleury. Some people are saying Binnington. To me, I'm going with Fleury at this point. Like I still think that Fleury is the gamer. Like he has shown what he can do.
Yeah, but you can't go with Price and Fleury. The next guy's got to be a younger guy because if those 2 guys get hurt, which it is possible they get hurt, you are done. Your tournament is over.
Right? Well, right. So who's the third? Your third guy is either Binnington or Hart or Blackwood or Kemper. Those are the other players you talked about. To me, this comes down to how they play in the beginning of the season. Like to me,
it will come down to that.
Whoever's playing the best. Like if Hart's back, storming, and the only thing I think that reason people are saying Hart, Mike, and I think the thing about that gives maybe Hart a little bit of advantage. I think Team Canada still is belief that Carter Hart is eventually their goalie, but he's eventually the next Carey Price type
Yeah, but
person
the
for them.
problem is if you have to put him in there and you're just sort of like, okay, he's sort of there for the ride, we're not sure.
Right.
They can't do it with the age on those goalies. That's why I think Kempner has a chance.
Well, the tradition of that third goalie has been sort of like the guy in the sidecar. I mean, if you
right, he's not going to get in.
You look at 2010, they started Cujo and they went to Brodeur. In 2014, they went from Brodeur and went to Luongo, and so they'll give one goalie a chance at the beginning and then go to the second goalie. So I don't think the third goalie is really going to be in the mix.
Wasn't there an international tournament though when Canada used 3 goalies? What am I thinking of?
There was.
They didn't use Balfour. They didn't use Mike Smith. They've been pretty much.
In 2010, didn't they end up using 3 goalies at some point?
No, they went from Cujo to Luongo.
Didn't Tim Thomas play in 2010 too?
No, not Cujo. I'm sorry. They went from
maybe it was
Brodeur to Luongo.
World Championship, maybe, Russ. I don't know.
Warren Thomas played in 2010, at least a few minutes.
Here's what I would do, just because Canada's team's so good and you want to leave no. I would take Fleury, Bennington, and Price, and I would tell everybody, let's just like a real team. Let's look and see how they look and how we're feeling and how the team's going, and we'll see what happens. Because all 3 of those guys are proven guys, and
Now the blue line is intriguing.
It is.
Now they do like if possible, because we've seen in the past them put I think they put Niedermayer and Pronger together. And
that sounds right.
And they were teammates.
Definitely.
One of the pairings is probably going to be Theodore and Pietrangelo with Vegas.
I think it has to be, and I think they're both worthy of being there. So I think it's perfectly.
Now, Sportsnet did their projections a few weeks ago, and they had the number 2 pairing as Thomas Chabot and Cale Makar.
Yeah, they're my number 1 pairing, but I agree.
I think those guys could end up on different pairings, but I think
they'd be on different pairings. I don't think I would put Chabot with Makar.
Well, I definitely would mix up the pairings, because their third pairing, even though I think both of these guys will be on the team, I wouldn't want to put Morgan Riley and Dougie Hamilton together, because that's, defensively, I think that's a little.
Well, I mean, you could make Riley the guy that stays back. You could do that.
I do have to apologize for an absolute ridiculous senior just back from vacation moment. Tim Thomas, I know, is American. I am so sorry about that. He played in that tournament as he came in 2010. That's why in my head was always like, Tim Thomas got a weird moment. But anyway, that's that. Sorry about that.
But no, but the other possibilities: Aaron Ekblad, obviously, Drew Doughty.
I think Aaron Ekblad's on that third pairing.
I do too.
And Doughty makes it too.
Ekblad and Riley played fantastic together at the World Cup
they did.
North America. So that
you want to have a guy with a physical presence,
right? That would. One group has Bowen Byram as a possible
I don't think he'll make this team.
Yeah, no, I don't either. But I got a guy, and this is my Eklund moment. So talk me off the ledge on this, but a guy that I really like, that I'm not convinced they're really going to be seriously look at him, but I think there's a chance. What about Samuel Girard?
Yeah,
I really like
him. Extra because if they have a power play guy go down, he could be your power play guy.
He really is.
I don't think it's outlandish.
I think there's a possibility, but I do think that the size bias.
Yeah, Nurse will probably beat him.
That's a good name, though. I mean, here's my Eklund moment. Adam, I'm going to say Adam Pelech. I honestly think that, Josh Morrissey is a possibility. I mean, my last pairing is Pelech and Ekblad. That's my third pairing. But again, I think this is similar to the goalie situation, where you have how are these guys playing in the season?
I can't put Pelech on the team. No offense.
I know Canada has a history of choosing the Marc-Edouard Vlasics or the Dan Hamhuis, but in this tournament, I don't think you can have. And Pelech is pretty much he's a very good NHL player. Don't get me wrong. He's a very one-dimensional defenseman.
Yeah, I'll take Darnell Nurse over Adam Pelech.
Yeah, and Darnell Nurse isn't even mentioned. I think Darnell Nurse has a they'll take 8 defensemen. I think Darnell Nurse will be one of the 8.
Well, you've got like Pelech, you've got Morgan Riley, you've got Hamilton, you've got Parayko, you've got Chikrin, you've got some other really good defensemen out there still for sure. So to me,
I don't know if Chikrin makes this team. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I have Riley in there too. Like, I want to see how he does in the beginning of the season too. Like, to me,
Riley has the edge over Chikrin, but if it's a bad season, like you said, it could change.
Yeah, let's see how they play in the beginning of the year. That to me is where that's at.
The weird thing is that Canada is very loaded on the right side of the D. They're not loaded on the left side. So that's why Riley, on almost every list that I see, is one of the 4 lefty defensemen that makes it.
You really have only 2 months to prove yourself,
right?
For those that are on the bubble, because usually by mid-December, although you could change right up to New Year's Day, but usually on New Year's Day they're going to announce the team. Usually you have it sketched out by mid-December, and
those guys are out scouting feverishly the first month and a half of the season. They really do. They do. Yeah.
And there's always a guy, though, one position that they're still arguing about on the 21st of December.
I mean, does the fact that Doughty's not over the hill. Doughty has won 2 gold medals in 2010 and 2014.
Yep.
I mean, will that be a consideration? I think it will be.
He can play in any situation. That's why I have to put Drew Doughty on the team.
Right.
Yeah. I'm with Russ.
That's why. Like, I know Dougie Hamilton had a phenomenal offensive year, and he's a really good offensive player. But I put Dougie Hamilton in the PK Subban category, where he's an extremely good offensive defenseman. Defensively, I think there's still some question marks, and they don't want question marks on this.
Who's the coach for Team Canada, guys?
Cooper,
right. So you have to look at that too, because you have to look at coaches and the ways they like to coach, right?
Right.
And the kind of players they like to have.
If it was Babcock, there's no way Dougie Hamilton would make this.
Well, that's another reason with Cooper as coach, Stamkos is making the team.
Yes.
I think he's brought along. I'm not.
And Point is playing center.
Yeah. That's gonna hurt Canada, because they're gonna keep somebody out over Stamkos.
Cooper's gonna do what Cooper's gonna do.
Wait. It's gonna hurt Canada when you have McDavid, Crosby, Point, and Couturier as your centers. That's going to hurt Canada.
Well, it still doesn't mean you can just put me or you out there, Mike. I mean, it's like we got to, they have some really talented players.
We're not talking about Belarus, Zach. We're talking about Canada.
I know, but you still want to put your best team out there. I mean, they are going to have to compete against other really good teams.
We're not talking about the Japan team.
Yeah, they're not playing Kazakhstan.
They better hope not.
You might be able to make Japan as a goalie.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it's the top 4 that we have. We kind of nailed down the top 4, and pretty much the top 9 in the forwards, and then it gets interesting, which is probably how it normally is at this point.
Also, injuries will play into this too,
and that's the other thing that definitely is there.
Yeah, for sure.
Now Barry Trotz is an assistant on this team, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he is.
You don't think he pushes in anything on Adam Pelech? Like I said, I mean, to me,
he'll push him.
Pelech does something very important for Trotz on an Islanders team. Is one of the best teams teams.
Historically, assistant coaches don't have much on these things.
You mean you're talking about Pelech, not Pulak, right?
Pelech. I keep calling him Adam Pelech. Yes, I'm sorry. I keep saying the wrong. I keep pronouncing it wrong. I apologize.
Pulak, and I think he's Canadian as well, and he's got a big shot. So
yeah, but I think Adam Pelech. I'm sorry, man. I can't talk yet. I'm just back. Sorry, I haven't talked to many people besides my family. But I think that I just think that he's such a trustworthy. Trotz trusts him so much that he's going to, maybe he doesn't have any say, but there's going to be a push, because as far as defensive defensemen go on this team, like guys who are just shut down guys.
But that's the point, Ak. I don't think that maybe 8 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, you had room for that shutdown D, like Vlasic, like Hamhuis. In this game, I don't think you can really reserve a spot for a quote defensive defenseman or a shutdown D. It's like I think everybody's got to be dual capable.
I will say this: Ektasi Designs in the chat room did point out something that was very historic that could happen again. And he says, I remember the whole fiasco of Martin St. Louis requesting a trade after Steve Yzerman didn't pick him on Team Canada. That is a fact.
Yeah, for sure. But I I think the Lightning have learned from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, do you remember, Russ? Pat Quinn was coaching the team in Salt Lake. Chose Cujo, started Cujo, went away from him, and Cujo the following spur left Toronto because Pat Quinn stabbed him in the back in his eyes by not.
I mean, it's always possible that Stamkos says, like, I'm liable for injuries. Like, I might not want to go to that. Like, is it possible
He'll
that
want
Stamkos
to go, Eck.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're probably right. I'm just playing out all these things. All right. I like Ekblad too, but we got to see how he comes off of the injury. I think.
Yeah, I mean, Ekblad could be hurt, and then we're not talking.
But I think if he's what he is, he's definitely on the team.
Yeah,
I agree with Kevin 100%. All right, it's all time for today, folks. Thanks so much for watching us. We'll be back again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Enjoy your beautiful September day wherever you are.